a command. What did he tell them? And what? Which is the what? This is a command. It's not optional. You don't have a right to say you're not going to. Honor your father and mother. See, these are commands in the Bible. And this is what he's going to ask us about and judge us about. Because this is no option. He didn't give you room to make your own up. You got to honor your father and mother. And some of you need to see this because guess what? Some of us got fathers and mothers that get absolutely on our nerves. My God, we just want to go crazy when we see them. They drive you up a wall. But what did God say? Honor your father and mother. That means you have to honor them when you see them. You have to acknowledge them. You have to show some type of love to. I mean, that honor goes a long ways. Amen? Amen. These are commands. So see, you got to pay attention to this stuff. And so if you got a father and a mother, I don't care who they are or what they did or where they are or what's going on with them, you don't have a right to say you're not going to do this. Because just like me, I got a dad. I mean, I'm telling you what, it's hard. It gets very difficult at times. But I realize that even myself, I mean, it's hard to walk in some of this stuff. But these are the things that God has commanded, so we don't have an option. Amen? No option here. Somebody say no option. No option. Got to do it. Come on, let's go down into Mark 12:31. You got Mark? Go ahead and pull down. And the second, like it is, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. This is a command. Love your neighbor as yourself. You don't have a choice, right? No choice here, right? God said that you have to love your neighbor as yourself. You don't have no choice here. And so you have to think about all the people that you could be giving a piece of your mind. And you have to be thinking about all the people that probably you want to kick some butt, you know, all this stuff right here. You have to love. God said, love your neighbor, man. I mean, he said, this is a command. Yeah, I want you to see God commanding some things. And so God is going to judge us based on our love for our neighbor, based on how I love Stephanie, based on how I love Brother Jose right there, based on how I love whoever you love and whoever's in your midst. If you don't show love to them, God says, I'm going to be waiting for you. I mean, on that day, I'm going to ask you concerning these things. Look at your neighbor and say, I love you. Yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah, you love him. So let's prove it now. I want to go back in and prove it now. My God. Go back into John 3:16. My God, my God, my God. I want you to see this because I want you to see that we talked about God being a giver and God being a sacrificial giver. But I want you to see something here. He didn't just give one of the angels. He gave his son. And so a real sacrificial gift hurts. It hurts you to do it. If you're really a sacrificial, if it's really a sacrificial gift, like God gave here, you have to understand to give your only son, the only one. How many people got kids in here? Amen. Yeah, you got a kid, and you got just one of them. Now, if you got two sons, I mean, I don't want to give any of them up. But if I lost one and I had one, it still would hurt. But I still got one. But to lose the only one, there ain't no more. You got to understand the sacrifice. When it's a real sacrificial, when you're a real sacrificial giver, it hurts to do it. My God, it pulls at you. It challenges you. It's tough for you to do what you're about to do. And that's how you know when you're a sacrificial giver, is because when you do that thing, it hurts you to do it. It really pulls at you. My God, you shouldn't be able to do something and it not pull at your heart or really pull at you on the inside. If you can give something and it doesn't pull at you to do it, you're not a sacrificial giver. You're not a sacrificial giver. Because anything you do from a sacrifice standpoint, it ought to hurt somewhat to do it. Amen? It ought to bother you. It ought to get in your heart. It ought to challenge you. My God. It ought to cost you something. My God. It cost him his own son's life to get us out of whatever we're in. Think about it for a moment. Think about the sacrifice that was made here. Think about what God was doing. What he must have felt like when he sat on heaven and watched his son go through all of that and everything. Just so two reasons. Number one, he can get us out of mess. Amen? And number two, he can teach us how to be sacrificial givers. Amen? Because God knew the propensity of the people in this church will always be stingy. God knew that people would be stingy and stuck up and wouldn't release. And so God said, I want to show you how I do it. I want to take my own son and show you how I'm going to make this payment so that you would know how you should do it. Because God has to be a first partaker of his own commandment. Amen? He can't command us to do something. I know it's going to be quiet. Don't worry about it. I know. But this is why Jesus marvels now in Mark chapter, let's go to Mark chapter 12. I want to show you that. Now, go back in there. Go and pull down. Let me see where we are. No. Mark chapter 12, look at verse 41. There we go. Now watch now. I want to show you this. See, I know it's going to be library, but it's okay. It can be library. Why? Because we talk about giving, and it ain't never tough when it ain't never good. And we ain't talk about cars and houses. But this is very, very beneficial. Amen. And so look what now Jesus marvels now at this woman because she does the very thing that God is in love with. Amen. And so God is not just in love with a giver because even the heathens do that. Amen. Even Oprah Winfrey can give $1,000 and not care. My God, I mean, what does it matter? Even the worldly people do that. But let's watch this now. Jesus sat opposite the treasurer and saw how the people put money into the treasury. And many who were rich put in. So you had two people there. You had rich people there and other people, right? Amen. Go pull down. Then one poor widow came and threw in 2 mites. Which made a quadrant go down. So he called his disciples and to himself and said to them, "Surely I say to you that this poor widow has put in more than all those who have given to the treasury." Go down. For they all put in out of their abundance. My God, they put in out of their abundance, he says. See, they had much, so they gave much. That's not sacrificial giving, folks. When you got 100,000, you give 1,000, you ain't sacrificing. You got plenty, so it's easy to do it. It's easy to do when you got money. But what did she do? But she gave out of her what? And put in all that she had, her what? Whole livelihood. And so Jesus was marveled at this woman because he said, "My God, you only got 2 mites anyway, and everybody else got all this money, but you got 2, and you gave out of your poverty the 2 that you had, and you threw that in." He said, "This woman is giving more than everybody else." Why? Because she gave it sacrificially. And God is attracted to sacrificial giving. He loves to see people give up sacrificially because he had to do it. Amen. And when he sees somebody give out of the poverty instead of giving out of the overflow all the time, some people only give when they got something. If you got $500 and somebody says it will give 50, you won't mind. But what about when you only got 75? Because you got to understand the commands of God is not optional. Once he commands it, regardless of what you think, you have to follow through if you want to receive the blessing. We're going to see that. The blessing is predicated on what? Sacrificial giving. We're going to see it now as we go further. But I want you to see Jesus marvel now. He's so marveled that he calls his disciples to him and begins to brag on the widow woman, not the people who threw in thousands and thousands and walked away. It's not the amount you give, it's how you give it. Did you give it sacrificially? Did it pull on you? Did it tug at you? Did it bother you? Did something get on you and say, "My God, this is a real tough for me"? That's what God is moved by. Because this woman did that. It hurt her. You think it didn't hurt her to give that 2 mites? That's all she had. She was poor anyway. The Bible says she was a poor widow. Didn't even have a husband. My God. And she gave it all. My God. And Jesus said, "Oh, this woman right here is what I'm talking about." And we talking turkey now. You see this? Ooh, look at my girl. She getting off. You know what I'm saying? And so he said she's getting off. And so I want you to see now how he wants you to do it. Go down to 2 Corinthians. Because now we see the commands. We know what he says. We know. And now we see that even he's marveled now by watching the widow woman. He says, out of all these people, she's the one that really blessed me. She's the one that I'm going to make reference to because she did it right. Amen? She didn't just throw money in and say, "Oh, yes, Lord, I did you a favor." He said, No. She gave a sacrifice. Watch how God says it. Go ahead, pull that. So let each one give as he purposes in his heart, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God is the cheerful giver. So what does he say here? Let each one give as he purposes in his heart. So, okay, he lets it be led to our heart. But watch the next words. Not grudgingly, right? Let's look at the definition of that. Because that's going to help us today. Y'all ready? Grudgingly simply means unwilling or reluctant. Reluctant. And so he said, if you want to be a sacrificial giver, you can't just do it. But your heart has to be right when you do it, because he said, "I don't want you to walk up. Can I do this? This is going to be a tough Sunday." Somebody said it's going to be a tough Sunday. That's always is anyway. I always do the dirty work anyway. It don't matter. I'm used to it anyway. But he said, when you get ready to operate in this sacrificial giving, for those of you that want to participate and receive this thing, he said, you can't just go up with your sacrificial giving and say, "God, yes, this hurts me." But yet everybody else knows it hurts you, because you're like, that's grudging. That's reluctant. You didn't want to do it. It's not in your heart. You didn't want to give it anyway. You might as well take that back to your seat and sit